Why do people think that dropping cigarettes isn't littering? They are just inconsiderate. Finally, my expertise as a former piece of shit comes in handy. Cigarette smokers justify this behavior with many excuses. For example, they don't put ashtrays in cars anymore, so they have to throw it out the car window. They have a million of them, and the specifics aren't very important. The real reason is they're simply desensitized to the harmful action. They go through 20-60 butts per day. That's a lot to dispose of properly. It would be inconvenient to do it right every time, so they do it wrong a lot and convince themselves it's no big deal. To be clear, I do not think these things anymore. I was young. The justification is, I might start a fire if I throw it away. They could stomp it out and then throw it away, but they don't. It also particularly bad for birds. Many of them will pick up butts for their nests and get poisoned by the nicotine and other nasties. They know it's littering, they are just dicks. I don't think people consciously justify leaving behind cigarette butts, it's just that not doing that is too much of a pain in the ass. We don't all justify every action we take. Sometimes we do things unjustifiable for convenience as sake. My town beach has signs specifically saying kids play here, keep this space tobacco free, and I still find cigarette butts everywhere. It seems that there's just a high concentration of inconsiderate jerks among the tobacco-using population. As a former cigarette litterer like 13 years ago, I honestly thought it would compost. I thought it was just paper, dried plant bits and a little bit of cotton. Boy did I hate myself when I found out what the filters are actually made of. Now though, 13 years later, I'd call it common knowledge that they do not, in fact, compost and are actually extremely harmful. No idea why people still do it. Causes fires in trash cans. If you are a smoker, it's not easy to find places to put butts these days. Also, they smell absolutely terrible, so it's not an option to carry them around unless you have some kind of container. When I was a smoker, I did do my best to smoke in out of the way places and tried to discard my butts in the below the street curb, which usually gets swept and is fairly inconspicuous. Smoking is gross, don't do it kids. It's just being lazy. Problem is sometimes that there's no ashtray around. I always have a portable ashtray with me for that reason, but I've never seen another person with something similar. They know, they just don't care. They don't care about their own body. Do you think they care about the world? Honestly, why are we not blaming the tobacco companies? They know full well that the cigarette filters they make will get thrown on the ground, yet they refuse to make them out of biodegradable materials. Just like how McDonald's still uses plastic cups in 2024. Why are they allowed to do that? Because cities know that people smoke, but still often do not put ashtrays on public bins. I mean, I do not have a hat in this ring, but I think that if you want people to not litter, you need to provide ways to make it feasible. If you have no bins, people throw rubbish on the streets. If you have no ashtrays, people will throw their fag ends on the street. I think there's 3 things to consider here. 1. Most places don't provide spaces to adequately butt out. Most people aren't going to just carry their smoked butts around in their pocket, whether they think it's littering to toss them on the ground or not. While in rural areas this is impossible to improve, cities could curb the habit by providing more receptacles and actually actively ticketing people who toss their butts. 2. Butts are usually made of plant cellulose and actually break down surprisingly fast. There's a reason the world's biggest cities don't just have piles of butts on every street corner. Sure, you see butts, but they don't stick around long enough to form piles unless they're somehow shielded from the elements. 3. Legally, in a lot of areas, it wasn't considered littering until recent. A lot of places it still isn't considered littering, since littering is far more of an issue of it being unsightly than an environmental issue. If it isn't classified as littering where you are, then it isn't littering. It's littering for sure, but who cares about littering? With the shit going on in the world, getting worked up about littering, like how spoiled are people exactly? They got nothing better to do? Extra asshole points for people who smoke in their cars and dump the ashtray on the ground wherever they happen to park. Would it kill you to walk 20 steps to the nearest garbage can? People don't think other people care. You gotta call them out on it. Most likely they'll tell you to fuck off or say, look, everybody else is doing the same thing, to deflect. But it inserts the thought into their head at least.